like you've failed is a miserable way to feel, even when you know what you're doing is going to be risky. On the second day of my underwater testing project, things were so awful that I just wanted to give up and go home. It's not as though I've never done anything risky before. In a way, my whole career's kind of been a gamble. I chose to become an engineer, even though I knew there weren't very many women in the field. And that's put a special kind of pressure on me. I've always had the feeling that I had to work harder and to do a better job just to keep up with the others. I knew it was wrong to feel that way, but I just did.
Hey, Barb, can I talk to you for a minute?
In fact,
right there.
I think that one of the reasons I took on a project that was almost impossible was to prove that I was a first-rate engineer. What's the problem, Charlie?
On this system, the temperature only reads up to 60 degrees. Do you want to run a complete temperature cycle or something less?
Well, I guess it's unrealistic to expect the ocean ever to get up to 60 degrees where this is going to be used. So, run 3 temperature cycles up to 40 degrees, and then just 1 point up at 60 to check it out.
Okay.
I work as an ocean engineer for a government agency called NOAA. We test instruments that measure all kinds of things about ocean water to see if the instruments are dependable. We try to recreate the ocean here in the lab, in baths and in tanks. We can find out how a current will affect the instruments or how salt water affects the instruments. But one thing we can never do is find out what happens when the whole ocean acts together. Barnacles, fish, salt, temperature, everything at the same time. That's why I planned an underwater project.
Well, this sounds like something that we should really talk about some more, but I don't have much time right now. How about lunch today?
Nobody at the lab encouraged me when I tried to get support for the underwater testing project. My colleagues seemed to think that it was too big a change from the way we normally did things. The more I worked with the instruments, the more I really wanted to get them out into the real ocean. It's no wonder I felt nervous trying to get approval for this project. I felt I had to convince my supervisor. Can I talk to you for a few minutes about some field testing on the water quality systems?
Yeah, but just for a minute. I've got to get this out before staff meeting.
Okay, you know, I felt I had to convince him that the project was important and that I was capable of leading it.
You think that's really necessary? You know, we cut all the field testing money out of the budget.
We're never going to know how these field systems will behave in the environment unless we take them out into the ocean and really look at what they can do. We can use this habitat down in Grand Bahama Island. We could string the instruments out on the ocean floor and live in the habitat and monitor them continuously while we're down there.
You know, that kind of testing is too expensive, Barbara. We don't have any money in the budget for field testing.
I'm pretty sure that we can get funding from another NOAA project. If I can find the funding, and if I can get the diving support that we need on the project, can I have the approval of the office to go ahead and plan?
You're going to find it's harder to get the money and harder to get the divers and harder to get the support than you think. I don't think it can be done. You don't even know how to dive.
I can take a basic scuba course and get qualified as a NOAA diver within about 3 months.
Hey, what's the matter, Barbara?
My mask is filling up with water.
Okay, that's the way you got your hood on. Come out into shore. We'll fix it up. Put your snorkel in. So back to shore.
Wakefield, is that outside the tank? We don't want it to hang up on the tank. We have to drop it.
Run up here, Barbara. Put your stuff down. Okay, now what? What happened, Barbara, is that your mask got the hood caught underneath the strap. So get it down. Okay, get the skirt around. Now, right around here, you got to make certain that the hood is outside the skirt. Okay, now that feels better, right?
Right, right.
Okay, we should be all set to go. Okay, are you ready to go diving over there?
We made it to the Bahama Islands by September. I had money, I had other scientists to help me, and I was certified as a diver who could live in the Underseas Hydrolab for a week. Everything went smoothly until the second day I was there. Then we were taken out for a diving test. For the first time, after months of getting ready, I felt I might have made a big mistake. Those of us who were going to live in the Hydrolab were put through a series of very difficult diving maneuvers to make sure that we could survive in case of emergency. We had to swim very fast through the coral and through caves. Then, when we were very worn out, we had to perform buddy breathing and mask clearing exercises. By the time we were halfway through the test, I was exhausted. My head was throbbing with a horrible headache, and I was having a hard time trying to breathe. I would have given anything to get back up to the surface after that test. But instead, we had to follow the director down to the Hydrolab. He wanted to show us how we would live in it when we moved in the next day. Inside, I was feeling very trapped and sick. I couldn't even concentrate. I was afraid. But at the same time, I couldn't admit that I'd made a mistake. I was the project leader, and nobody was going to get the job done if I wasn't there to do it. I was relieved just to be safe back on board the support boat. But I felt sure that the project was failing, and me with it. The next morning, I decided I couldn't quit, at least not yet. Everybody else seemed so confident, and I hadn't told anybody how frightened I was. They started moving the equipment out to the Hydrolab site in preparation for our moving in. When I saw my equipment going down for good, it seemed there was no turning back. I just kind of went over the side with it. I felt anxious, but I kept very busy. Tony and Mike, the other scientists, needed me to tell them what to do, and I found myself giving all the directions. We must have laid 1,000,000 miles of cable on the ocean floor. Gradually, I began to feel better. The tests were all going well, and suddenly it just dawned on me that here it was. We were working and living underwater.
Base to Hydrolab. Base to Hydrolab. Rail check, over.
Hydrolab to base. This is Barbara. And everything's okay down here. Systems are gurgling away.
Fine. Anything you need?
Mike and Tony are outside working now. And we're having a problem with communications. We need some of that underwater paper.
Yeah, we can send that down by the first boat in the morning. We'll send it down by the big pot.
Okay, over and out. We were winning. We were doing what people told me was going to be very difficult or impossible to do. I could look around and I could see the respect of the people that I was working with. I actually began to have fun. After 7 days, we all felt as though we really belonged down there on the ocean bottom. I never would have believed it. But the last thing I wanted to do was pack up the instruments and go home. It may sound foolish, but the whole Hydrolab experience meant something more to me than just a successful project. It actually changed my whole life. More and more, I'm taking on projects I wouldn't have dreamed of handling a few years ago. Hydrolab proved to me that I can do a lot more than I thought I could. Even things that scare me, and I really feel good about myself.
Supported by a consortium of 34 educational agencies. This program was produced by WNVT, Northern Virginia Educational Television, under the supervision of AIT, Agency for Instructional Television.